I'm Matt Miller of the Ditch That Textbook podcast, a proud member of the Education Podcast Network, just like the show you're listening to right now. The opinions expressed are those of the individual hosts. Make sure you check out all the other great educational podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
Coming up on episode 149 of the House of EdTech podcast, we're going to talk about transferable skills, a better way to shorten URLs, and I've got 2 conversations and 3 guests as we dive into TikTok for teachers and education. Strike up the band. Welcome to the House of EdTech podcast. I am your host, Chris Nesi. The House of EdTech explores how technology is changing the way teachers teach and the impact that technology is having in education. I discuss technology that is changing our classrooms and schools, and I share tools and tips that you can hear today and use tomorrow. You're going to hear the stories of teachers, leaders, and creators just like you. The purpose? Whether you use it or not, technology is changing the way you teach and how your students learn. Welcome back to the House of EdTech podcast. This is a very exciting episode to be doing for you. If you're a new listener, welcome aboard. If you're a returning listener, welcome back. This episode is all about TikTok in education, TikTok for teachers, TikTok for students. We're going to have some fun today because, like I said in the teaser, I'm going to share 2 conversations with 3 guests. So this is a big episode of the podcast. Before I get into that, a little bit of feedback that I recently got, and the House of EdTech community needs your help. So this came in from the Facebook group, which you can find at chrisnesi.com/Facebook. And this comes to us from Khalid Al Anchor. He asks, what EdTech Live interacting quizzing tools do you or your staff use with learners that are 1, easy to set up, 2, easy to edit, and 3, offer multiple methods of questioning? Khalid is basically sharing the fact that, quote, my staff are getting bored of Kahoot. I recommended that he check out GimKit, and there were some other suggestions in the Facebook group. But if you're not a part of the House of EdTech Facebook group, go over to chrisnesi.com/Facebook, where you can connect with Khalid and share your thoughts on interactive quizzing tools that you might use in your classroom. Also, before we get into it today, I do want to give a nice shout out to Dennis Dawson. Dennis emailed me recently, and he's a new listener, and he reached out via email. Dennis is an English teacher from Houston, Texas, and he's currently working on his dissertation that focuses on teacher perceptions of new technology professional development. So, Dennis, it was great to connect with you via email. Thanks for the great conversation. Hope you enjoyed today's episode. It's going to be a good one. Now, let's get into this, and let's get into the EdTech Thought. For today's EdTech Thought, I want to talk about the idea of transferable skills. Specific platforms are not relevant. As you integrate technology into your classroom, you need to simply focus on the skills you want your students to get better at. You can listen to any number of podcasts or read articles and blog posts about all the ways to have students create websites and blogs and podcasts and write essays, and the list goes on with all the different types of things that we ask students to do and get better at. What is important is that students do get better at honing their skills and developing. It doesn't matter if it's writing or recording or presenting or whatever the skill is. Now, when it comes to technology tools, there is no guarantee that the tool you love today will be there tomorrow. An example you might relate to is if you didn't get on the Snapchat train a few years ago. Snapchat was all about stringing together short video clips and telling stories. And then Instagram added the same feature with Instagram stories. If you were on Instagram but didn't mess around with Snapchat, then when that feature came in, maybe you felt lost in your story creation game. Look for the value of an app in terms of what it actually does and what it takes to use the app effectively. And then go get better at those skills on whatever platform or platforms that are available to you, and encourage this in your students as well. Instagram, Snapchat, and even the focus of today's episode, TikTok, they might not exist in 5 years, but the skills that you or your students use to leverage these platforms today will undoubtedly transfer to the next app or tool that does. And that's my EdTech thought. All right, now it's time for this episode's House of EdTech recommendation, and I want to recommend to you yellkey.com. That's YELLKEY.com. This is a good one. I heard about this from Tony Vincent on Twitter, and Yellkey comes to us from Delta Lab at Northwestern. Yellkey is a URL shortener, like Bitly, like TinyURL, except the Yellkey browser extension for Google Chrome, Firefox, or Safari, or if you just go to yellkey.com and input your long, incoherent URL for something, it basically gives you a very common English word. So, for example, and this isn't active, let's say I put in chrisnessy.com/149-using-TikTok-in-education. You get the idea. Very long URL that I wouldn't want to say out loud. If I put it into yellkey.com, I can choose how long the URL that is created is active, and that can be done for 5, 10, 15, 30 minutes, or an hour, 3, 6, 12, or up to 24 hours that you can have a URL be active. And what Yellkey does, it would take my long link and make it yellkey.com/banana. So if you wanted to quickly put a URL on the board in your classroom to have students enter, say, a Nearpod, or, go access a Flipgrid, or get to a news article, and maybe you didn't have time to put it in Google Classroom or your learning management system, you can create a Yellkey link, and it would be very simple and easy to use. And again, you can find it at yellkey.com, and there will, of course, be a link to Yellkey in the show notes out at chrisnessy.com/149. And that's my House of EdTech recommendation. So as I said in an episode in December, and I've hinted at it for a few episodes now, this episode is all about TikTok in education. And having been aware of Musical.ly and TikTok for the last year, I never really wanted to dive in until I had 2 young students of mine at the high school for a project in November, early December, ask, could they create TikTok videos for their social studies project? And my reaction was, go for it. I don't know really how it works, so you're going to get to teach me something while you're showing me what you understand about the current social studies topic that we were looking at. And these 2 young ladies created some TikTok videos, not to post online, but to use the tool to, download them and be able to submit them to me, through Google Classroom. And I was really impressed with how these young ladies demonstrated their understanding of the topic and how simple it was to create these short form videos. So that's kind of what got me into it. The other thing that got me into it was, and I mentioned this previously, was a short episode of Don Wettrick's Start Ed Up, where he basically said that he checked out TikTok and really wasn't too happy with what he saw and felt uncomfortable by what he saw on TikTok as a, over 40-year-old white male. And basically it felt uncomfortable, and he doesn't think that it has a place for teachers or for students and anything to do with education. So when I heard Don's opinion, I thought, I don't know. So I need to go check this out. I want to see for myself. I had students be successful with it, and that kind of already planted the seed for me that TikTok could be a good thing. So I checked out TikTok, didn't create an account, downloaded it, and started to consume content. And I wasn't offended by what I saw. And I started to dig deeper and start to use hashtags and start to curate content for myself. I'm really into it. And in one of the classes I'm teaching at Rutgers, I'm integrating TikTok into what I'm having my students do at the college level. And an upcoming project as I record this episode at the high school, I'm also going to be giving students the opportunity to use TikTok to create. So I am very much a fan. While I have not put myself out there yet, I do say yet. I will be creating content on TikTok. But prior to releasing this episode, I also put in the feed, and hopefully you saw it, and hopefully you listened to it already, or you will. I dropped another recent episode of Don Wettrick's Started Up podcast into the feed to provide you with an extended, different perspective on TikTok and education. As I record this, again, Don and I are at opposite ends of the spectrum when it comes to TikTok and education. Neither of us is trying to win a debate. It's not a contest, but I have a different view than Don. No big deal. But I want you to hear both perspectives and come to the best conclusion for you. So that's why I put that episode of Don's podcast into the feed. So whether you listen to it before this episode or you listen to it after, I just want to make sure that you listen to both of us, and then obviously share your thoughts as you develop your own point of view on TikTok. That being said, I'm very excited to share two conversations with you. First up, I'm going to be sharing a conversation I had with Brooke Povich. She is a high school senior in Jacksonville, Florida, and this conversation will certainly speak for itself because she is a student who's using TikTok in an amazing way. So let's head over to my conversation with Brooke. All right, and joining me now on this very awesome episode of the House of Ed Tech, where we're talking TikTok in education, I am joined by Brooke Povich. She is a high school senior from Jacksonville, Florida, who has more than 100,000 followers and 4.5 million hearts on TikTok. What is she doing? She is sharing her history knowledge in the form of creative, funny, and theatrical 15 and 60-second clips. She uses her notes from AP history classes to make them, and she joins me here on the podcast. Welcome to the House of Ed Tech, Brooke.
Of course. I'm excited.
Just as a frame of reference, somebody tagged me in a tweet that referenced Brooke in an article from either time.com or a newspaper in her hometown in Jacksonville, and knew that I was going to be creating this episode. So I randomly reached out to her. I tried on TikTok, but we're not following each other. So then I was like, let me do what I do and find her elsewhere on the internet. So we connected on Instagram, and she responded to a strange teacher from New Jersey saying, hey, be on my podcast. So
I feel like I've done that a couple times with things. Instagram is probably the best way to always reach me. That's how Time reached me. They like went through my Instagram, and I just was like, you know what? I'll just respond to this random person. You know, guess I wasn't just like, guess I'm open to things. I don't.
Well, I'm sure it helped. I mean, my picture was there. I got a description.
Yeah.
And if you looked at my Instagram profile, it's me and my kids. So there you go.
Yeah, you didn't look suspicious. I was like, you know, it seems pretty trusting.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right. So let's get down into TikTok and you. And again, I have you here because I want to learn about TikTok, and I want other teachers to be aware of the good it can do in schools, in education. And I figured who better than my target, I guess, clientele, students, to share with other teachers what the value is. So let me start by asking, how did you get started with TikTok?
I got started sometime in March of 2019. So I was always on Instagram, and I was seeing like meme pages, and they started featuring a lot of TikTok videos. And at that time, TikTok was growing steadily. There was starting to be a larger audience, and especially I think that early 2019, it started to grow a lot more and more. And I was seeing how it was kind of growing medium, because even before I kind of shamed TikTok, some of the things like late 2018, I was like, I'm never going to kid TikTok. That's cringy, which is now really ironic, I guess. But like I started seeing it as a growing medium, and I always noticed all these jokes going around. And I was like, what if I did that with like history stuff, because I've tried doing history meme accounts through Twitter and through Instagram a couple different times. And so I was like, I could do that on TikTok, this new spreading medium, and also help study for my APUSH exam, because I know that's coming up soon at that point. And I was like, I could combine all of that together and try to do it on TikTok and see who I could teach before the AP exam itself, APUSH. And also I had AP Euro knowledge from the year before, and help anyone who's going to go into AP Euro, trying to help them out on it. So it was kind of this new medium, and it kind of appealed to me during the phase that kind of started it was like that whole Old Town Road stuff, and also the Moto meme. I saw them everywhere on Instagram. I was like, I could definitely do that with history, both of them. So I decided to go on there. My first video is not actually history. I think it's something with Russia and Old Town Road-ish kind of phase thingy. But the second video was a Napoleon one that went with it and stuff. So I started doing all these like trends on TikTok to the actual like to something in history, a history class, usually AP Euro, APUSH.
Just because I teach history, when did that start? When did you, it sounds like you're in love with history and really enjoy it.
Yes. So I didn't get really a history class when I was in middle school. I went to a private school. It was a Catholic school, and the majority of the time it was dedicated to, we had like, I guess, a teacher that taught religion and history, but she spent the entire time just teaching about religion. So I never actually had much of a history class. So the first time I had a history class was freshman year of high school at a public school, and it was AP World, which is hard, for a freshman to start out with. So being able to actually delve into AP World and go through the entire history, I guess not the entire history, but a really big portion of history right there, it just really hit with me really fast, just reading the textbook, learning about anything from the Mesopotamians to the Mongols, like things I never heard about before.
Obviously being at that point, you're, 16, 17, 18 years old, you're a young person. And I know a lot of young people sometimes are self-conscious about putting themselves out there. And you really put yourself out there in a big way. One, creating content that the majority of people wouldn't think would be super popular. Whatever popular is. I mean, I'm 38 and who knows what it means. Was there any fear about putting yourself out there? And if so, how did you overcome any fear you had, or maybe that little voice in your head that might have been saying, don't do this?
I guess I never had a fear of at least putting, my face out there. I've been weirdly on Instagram stuff since I was pretty young. I was in 5th grade when I first got my first Instagram, which was not a good idea because then I got addicted to Instagram really fast. But I was even popular not before Instagram, but for middle school, I was popular on a website called Animal Jam. And I had a meme page dedicated to it that had 40,000 followers on it. So I was already people knew who my face was from that. So I never had a problem at least putting my face out there. Now making it history was I did have some doubt whether or not people would actually like history memes, I would say. I think something that really kind of made me do it over, even though there was some doubt and stuff, was seeing Instagram history meme pages. Because I saw that there were some Instagram history meme pages with hundreds of thousands of followers. And I was like, what if we just carry that over, but to the new medium and doing those type of trends and stuff versus following picture meme trends, and try to follow these TikTok trends instead. So doing kind of what they do, but not it's not exactly the same, but it's a kind of similar-ish concept. So I guess there was some doubt, but then seeing what people have already done on Reddit and Instagram helped inspire me to show wow, there really is an audience of people out there. Was kind of difficult at first because I thought that TikTok was for younger kids, even younger than me. And I was like, how much will they know? And I still have that kind of a problem why I can't even go into certain concepts that I've covered. Because right now I'm in IB contemporary history. We deeply, deeply study a lot of the contemporary history. Right now we're doing Castro. So I have really specific events on Castro, but I know if I made a video on that it would just flop because not everyone knows those really specific events. So I almost have to pick it apart to AP classes because more people do take AP classes in IB. And also trying to pick apart even besides doing that, but history knowledge that like everyone knows, and I'm trying to appeal to that wider audience. Like things like Cleopatra, most people know, even though it may not be covered in an AP history class.
Now, you just started to get into it a little bit when you start to talk about what your thought process is into what will make good content. You use the term, that you think some things might flop, so you want to try to appeal to a larger, demographic. What else goes into planning or preparing, or what inspires you to make the content you're making?
The biggest thing when I know a lot of people will request me videos, and I have like a little notebook that has like different requests that I've been given and stuff. And I know a lot of what they're talking about, but it gets hard with the actual audios and trends, because those are really matching it with a history event. Like I can know enough about a history event all I want. And it may still be like hard to still pair it with an audio or a trend. And that takes a lot of the preparation time. Is I often go through my audios that I have saved and just like play them over and over and over and be like, what can I think of that goes with it? But also a big thing is, have I done this a million times over? Like there are certain topics that I could pretty much pair with a lot of audios over and over again. But then of course that would get boring. One of my biggest specialties is Julius Caesar. I could pretty much put Julius Caesar, something with Julius Caesar, to almost every one of those audios, or Cleopatra or Joan of Arc. But I've done those 3 topics a million times over, and I don't want to do them again. So then that takes part of the preparation, is trying to play it with something I haven't done, rereading my AP Euro notes. Like I have an AP Euro site that I created a couple years back, going through the notes and being like, okay, let's try to focus on one thing. Let's think Machiavelli. Let's listen to every one of those audios I have saved and which one could go to Machiavelli. Sometimes that sucks because nothing is there that I can do. So then I have to go to another note. I'm like, okay, so here's Frederick Douglass. Read it over again. Go to through every audio. What can I pair to Frederick Douglass? Oh, great, nothing. So let's go to another concept. And it takes a lot of effort. Like I have, where's my AP? I stored all my A-push notes in this, and I will literally will go through, pick a random thing. This says Reconstruction, Andrew Johnson's Plan for Reconstruction, 1865. I'll go through all my audios, see if I somehow can plan it with Reconstruction, and more times than not, it's a failure. I will say, it's more times than not, there's just nothing there for the concept. So actually putting it with a history trend at the time, also making sure that people will know it in the first place. Because I could talk about, I feel like the Reconstructions, people who've taken an A-push class would know it. But there's certain things, like if I know I've done something on specifically William Lloyd Garrison, and it flopped. I know that. Harper's Ferry, too. And it just...
Real quick, let me interject real quick. Now, so you've used the idea and you describe content as either it might flop if you do certain topics, or you just shared something that, in your view, did flop. What is your definition or criteria for something flopping when you post it on TikTok?
Usually, I have some people have always questioned my standards, but if it doesn't get, I usually give it 2 days to get 1,000 likes. And sometimes I've left some because they might have a place in my heart that I really don't, even if it has doesn't have it yet. Like I had this one about Felix Arabia. That's where Yemen is, modern day Yemen. And it didn't get 1,000 likes quite right away, but I worked so hard on that video and I did not care. But most of the time, if I can see that it's not doing very well, usually if it's been a couple hours already and it's only had 100 likes, I usually just take it down.
What is one thing from your perspective as a student that teachers might not realize in terms of the value of TikTok, maybe as a teaching tool or using it to literally tell students or allow students to use it for creative projects?
I think what teachers are afraid of usually is, I guess, actually, I don't really know what they're afraid of. That's a good question. I really don't know what they're afraid of with it, but I personally think that the value of it is that it keeps kids interested. It definitely gets kids thinking, and it also sees the fun in history, because so many times in history classes, I've watched kids fall asleep. I had history class today. the amount of time kids around me who were asleep, and I'm like, this stuff's interesting, man. But like, I guess they don't see it in the same way. They kind of see it as just like a boring, because we just watch slides and stuff. Now I think it's fun because the teacher will crack some jokes sometimes, and I'm always waiting for that or waiting for something to happen, and I see the notes and stuff. But most kids aren't into that type thing. But TikTok is a way that you can put trends that kids understand, or at least most kids understand, and audios that most kids have already heard of, or just things that they already know from seeing either scrolling on Instagram or scrolling on Twitter and scrolling on TikTok. Wow. But just they know the trends, and trying to apply it to a history concept can get them more interested. It can also make them understand the concept more. Maybe they were like confused about something, and now they can apply it to some trend and maybe something they relate to. And it just keeps them more interested than, slides do, the fun music or little theatrical dances.
Well, along those lines, again, from your perspective, do you think students would be more interested in creating content on TikTok for school or consuming content that might be created by their teachers using the platform? I
think either, but I actually personally think that they'd be more interested watching, because not everyone is that kind of like would be willing to actually put themselves out there in the first place. And I think that, I guess for me, it's like so desensitized since I've been on the internet for so long, but not everyone's like that. Because I know multiple friends who do not want to they have TikTok accounts, but they don't create any content. They just scroll through because of the fact they don't want to put themselves out there. Because they're just, I think most kids that I know at school, they're like, oh yeah, I have a TikTok account, but I don't post anything on it because I just use it for content. So I think it's more that they would like to actually watch it, and maybe watch like a teacher do it, or someone who's already created the video just do it, because I guess just not everyone's up to actually making one.
Now, since you've been on it, and obviously you're in your community, your high school, you have your friends, you have, the teachers that you get to work with, has your activity on TikTok inspired anybody that's your friend, or have you inspired any of your teachers to be creators?
No, I'm more,
or at least try it.
I guess I've more inspired people to be watchers, which is different, because then all of a sudden I had like with the time stuff, one teacher was like, oh yeah, my daughter, I found out she was following your TikTok, and now I have to watch all your TikToks. And so it was like, I'm really embarrassed about that, because she follows my account she makes a TikTok. She follows my account, and the first video to pop up was not so much educational and much more of like a history joke kind of. It's probably my most inappropriate video, and it definitely goes like, oh God, I know. It's like, there's like a little question thingy going along where you have to answer like little personal questions. So I'll ask you like, hey, what's your zodiac sign? And who would you want to date, or what's your secret and stuff. But the last question was something about your like to go order, and the thing I said was Cleopatra's pussy, and that was the video that she saw. Of all the videos she had to see first, it's like my big look. When she told that in front of the class, my face went red. I didn't want to speak for the entire day. I was like, I'm so determined to delete that video, but I won't, because I'm like, it's now like a memorial to my suffering. So, but I guess I've inspired more people to be watchers. Now more people love going through my account and being like, oh, Brooke, I love that video that you did, inspired by, like, it helped me understand, there was this one, it was, Trizonia, France, UK, and the US, all, of course, combining their zones in Germany and creating Trizonia, West Germany. And a girl saw that, and she was like, I actually understand it more, and I love that video, and I keep watching it. So I guess I've inspired more people to be watchers, which is, I guess I like that. It's fine.
Now, in inspiring people to watch, let me turn the table on you just a little bit. You're a content creator. What type of things are you consuming, and what do you get out of TikTok as a user?
I'm trying to think. A lot of the people I follow, there's a lot of people who do other history meme stuff. So I get to watch there and, of course, see their content and stuff, which does help of course, I don't steal their content, but it does help like get my own like stuff going and stuff, seeing what audios you're using. So a lot of the people I follow have good audio taste is one thing, and I'm always looking for audios. What can I use? Because then what can I use to pair it to a historical event? So I get a lot of, so really from consuming others, that does not sound right, but consuming others' content, I guess. I swear I'm not Jeffrey Dahmer. But consuming other people's content helps to create my own content, like helps to kind of get my own juices, I guess, in my brain going to create my own content.
It inspires you.
Yeah.
When you create your content, are you doing any production or work, I guess, through third-party apps or technology, or do you create everything from within the TikTok app?
Most of the time nowadays, I do it just within the TikTok app. But if there's certain text, because TikTok only allows you to flash text for like at least 1 second. It has to be at least 1 second long. Sometimes that's not always the best thing for me because something has to flash faster. So I have to use, or if I have to edit a little bit, I use an app called InShot, but that's pretty much the only other thing I use. I pretty much only use InShot or use the TikTok app itself, besides getting sources and stuff, but that's pretty much, but not in the actual editing process.
And when you say sources, you're talking about whatever audio snippets or clips you're including?
Most of that's from the actual TikTok app, but when I'm talking sources, I guess for the historical event, I usually, even when I do base them off my notes, I almost always fact check them before, usually by going on history.com, because I dread having someone come into my comments and say that is incorrect. Like it's like a personal like shot at me, and so I usually almost always have a source to back me up, just like something to put out there, because see, I can't cite notes usually. I'm like, well, just my notes say it. Well, that doesn't look like a source at all. So many people have been like, oh, that's wrong because my mom said it or something. And I'm like, well, that's not a source. I'm like, I have this source to back me up and this source. And I hate getting those type of comments, I guess. So it's like paranoia.
Comments and feedback are a big part of a lot of social media platforms. How did you push through when or if you've dealt with any negative feedback or comments?
I didn't have negative comments for a while, actually. It took some time. But the first comments, all they did were like, because part of my mother is Polish, but my father is Czech and Roma. All my first comments, like hate comments at least, and hate videos, weirdly enough, the first video I got was a death threat, like an ath one, was because of my father's Roma heritage, or like, you gypsy thief type thing. And so that was like the first things I got. Like, I've got some people like sending me pictures of their hands and stuff. We'd be like, palm read it and stuff. I have a couple of screenshots on my Instagram that I guess I usually will post on my thing and make fun of them on my Instagram usually, because it's like a safe place for me to do it. But those definitely were hard on me, because originally my username was Romani Polak, so I was a lot more out with like talking about Romani stuff. And then I changed it to Slavic Caesar because I think it just, most of the time no one's going to attack you if you have it like Slavic wise, but I kind of censored a lot of that, my other part of my heritage, because I hated the comments that I got. Those were like the hardest comments. Otherwise, like, I get some people who think they're super smart geniuses, and they're like, oh, that didn't happen. The funniest was I almost about murdered this person online. It just was like, I really try to back all my things up with sources, but this person was like, it was about Cleopatra. I think I made a video where it was like Cleopatra and Julius Caesar. So before her and Mark Antony. But the person was like, Cleopatra never had anything with Julius Caesar. She had something with Alexander the Great. And I sat there and I was like, they were completely different time periods, like hundreds of years apart. And I sent her the dates, and she was like, Alexander the Great wasn't dead yet. I'm like, okay, so Alexander the Great lived 400 years. And she was just like, yes. And I was like, this person, you are a troll. And she's like, I have my PhD in history. I was like, no, you didn't. It was like, they looked like they were like 18 years old, maybe-ish. But I was like, ugh. But dealing with them, I remember being in the car. I remember being so heated. I was heating up the entire car. But those are usually, most of it is like people like, oh, no, I'm smarter than you type things. And I guess that's usually the worst nowadays.
But people like you, and in the short time we've gotten the opportunity to speak, I gather you're a good person and you're just trying to put out some good into the world about content that you're really interested in. So I can't say enough nice things about that.
Oh, thank you.
Now, to sort of wrap this up and bring it to a better place than, trolls and whatnot. We all know don't feed them. Yeah. What's the best thing that's happened to you since you started creating your content?
Probably, I hate to say recognition, but it is something that's really important to me, because I guess before I was not having the best life and stuff. I've gone through a lot with my life, and I don't want to say I don't want to say what it is and stuff, but I definitely have had some really just awful things, and just really, I'm trying to keep saying deep zones. I don't know what's the word for it, like downfalls and stuff. I guess I don't know, but for a long time I was kind of in an abyss where I just felt like there was no hope and stuff. And starting TikTok really, I've gotten a lot of friends from it. That was something, and also I was kind of always like the quiet kid type in class. Well, I talked, I was kind of. It depends on the class, but I always felt like the weird, smart kid that people only talk to because they wanted homework from. And then, the actual recognition came, it was no longer, just a joke just a joke and stuff. It was something that I actually did, and people actually respected it. So the respect that came with it definitely has helped a lot. And it's given me a lot more hope now, meeting friends and knowing what I can do in the world. It's given me a lot more hope and a reason to live, really.
That's fantastic. Let's look ahead. I mean, we've talked a lot about history, but let's look at the future for just a couple of seconds. You're going to be graduating high school this spring here in 2020. What does the future hold for Brooke in terms of what are you looking to study in college, and how does TikTok factor into what you want to do and where you want to go in the next couple of years?
So I'm hoping, I got accepted in the USF, so South Florida. So that's where I just really want to go. People mocked me because they were like, you could go so much further. And I was like, I just don't care. I want to just make sure I have the money. I don't want to go to an Ivy League school and have to have all the student loans. That's my biggest thing too, but I'm hoping to major. Well, I've already signed up to major in history, but trying to get my doctorate in history and be a history professor, because I do like teaching people. I've always taught people with tutoring and overall doing all that fun stuff. So I look to the future and teaching people, and also using kind of what I've learned from TikTok with teaching methods, what keeps kids interested. And I know I can't completely teach with TikTok and stuff, but use some of the methods of what actually keeps people and gets their attention, and use that kind of, I guess, psychology into whatever I use with TikTok, and trying to get that same attention into teaching others with it.
Hey, as Doc Brown once said, the future isn't written, so.
Yeah. I'm so worried about the future.
Don't worry about it. Take it one day and 1 60-second clip at a time.
Yeah.
Now, for my audience who might want to get in touch with you or ask you more questions, what's the best way they can contact you? And if through this episode I inspire my audience to get the TikTok app, please, share your username and how people can connect with you and start to consume your content there as well.
Best way to probably contact me is through Instagram, Slavic Caesar. And my TikTok's the same name, Slavic Caesar. Instagram, I check my DMs a lot, even just request messages. And I know I have a decent amount I actually eventually have to go through. But I try to check them as much as possible.
Thank you so much for a few minutes here on the House of EdTech. I believe that our conversation and what you shared and your experiences will certainly inspire people that listen to this show. And, I can't thank you enough for taking time. Thank you so much.
No problem, of course.
Thanks again, Brooke. That was a blast to have that conversation with her. And hopefully, if you do wind up getting the TikTok app, or you're already on TikTok, you definitely go and check her out. Again, her link to TikTok and her profile will be in the show notes at chrisnessy.com/149. And now let's roll the imaginary tape for my second conversation that I had with Jeremy Wrinkle and Brooke Rogers. Yes, ironically, another Brooke. Both of them are educators who are leveraging TikTok, and let's roll the tape and hear that conversation. I am joined today by Brooke Rogers. She is a middle school English teacher from Northern California who values time with her family and creating TikTok videos. And I'm also joined by Jeremy Wrinkle. He is a high school English teacher and technology leader. He's a conference presenter. He's also into yoga, and he's a lifelong learner from Illinois. Jeremy and Brooke, welcome to the House of EdTech podcast.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thanks for having me.
So as I said just before we hit record, you both are quote unquote doing TikTok, and I am really curious. In advance of this conversation, somebody whose podcast I listened to talked about how TikTok is not for education. Educators, stay away. And that made me go, I need to check this out. So I downloaded the app, didn't start an account, but I started to do the For You page and started to consume content. And I think this is a very powerful tool that I want to leverage as a content creator and a way to connect with my students, whether it's social studies or what I do at the university level, and even here, with the podcast. I'm going to start off. Brooke, how did TikTok start for you? What made you say, I want to use TikTok?
So I am a lover of social media. I like to try new apps when they come out. So I actually have been on TikTok since it was called Musical.ly. And I was on Musical.ly making videos with my family for a long time. As I went from being a stay-at-home mom into being a teacher, and all my students were using TikTok and they started finding me on TikTok, I started creating more teacher content, more student content, because that's the life I'm living now.
Jeremy, how about you? How did you get the TikTok bug?
Well, my children were watching TikToks one weekend, and they started, doing this one TikTok, and I'm like, well, what's this all about? And then that's all I started hearing about in the classroom. And as a classroom teacher, especially at the high school level, you're really wanting to key in on creating relationships with kids, because if you create the relationship, show that there's a mutual respect and a love, you're going to get a lot further when it comes to learning and challenging them in the classroom. And I was really struggling with that earlier this year. So what I ended up doing is kids were talking about TikTok, and I created one on a Sunday night at 8 o'clock at night. I went to bed with 5 views, and I woke up with 987. And I've never had any, I've blogged and I've done all kinds of different things and never had that many views. And I'm like, what is up with this app? And then the kids just immediately seen it at school. So I was like, they were coming up to me, when are you going to drop your next one? And I said, okay, I'm going to do one a week. And they would anticipate that. But then that got, for me personally, I wanted to learn it more. So I started doing, 2 or 3, sometimes 4 a week. That's how I got started.
When did you realize you could create content that was related to education? Because like you said, you were using Musical.ly before it was TikTok. So what made you say, I can do something for teachers?
It started to be, just full disclosure, this is my first year teaching. So I am consumed. Like, it is all that I think, it is all that I do. I stay up at night planning, creating new lesson plans and all these things that are all fresh and new to me. So it is all that I think about. So when it's time to create a joke or to make content, I automatically think about the classroom. Like, I just can't stop myself. And as Jeremy said, it really does help me connect with the students and relate with them on another level. Then I was just like, I got to keep going. I got to keep doing it for the kids. And so that's kind of what keeps me going. Plus, it's a nice outlet. It's a nice place to kind of be relaxed and be yourself and just kind of make jokes and also connect with people.
I knew that I wanted to find a way that I could reach students outside of the normal classroom. So in order to do that, you've got to go where the students are. Whether Snapchat, which I'm not a fan of, I'll be straight up honest. I don't add students on Snapchat. But with TikTok, I allow them to follow me. And with the idea of creating educational content, I've got to continually put those funny ones out there so that they'll continue to come back and look at the stuff that I'm wanting them to get. So sometimes I know that students at the high school level, they really don't enjoy reading. The ones I teach, or the majority of them don't. So how can I still teach the content that they need to know in 15-second intervals? Because TikTok, you can do 15 up to 60 seconds. So how can I get them to understand?
Is it like an either or thing? I'm sorry. Is it only 15 or 60, or is there anything in between?
Yeah, you can do shorter than 15. It defaults to 15 seconds. And then if you want it to be longer than 15, then you have to switch a default setting, or you have to switch a setting in the actual app whenever you go to shoot that video.
Okay. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
That's okay. But basically, I found that my students will watch 15 to 20 seconds. And with the way that the TikTok algorithm works, I'm thinking that 15 second is the sweet spot. Because, again, I don't know how the algorithm works, but the videos that I record longer than 15 seconds get a lot less views than the ones that are 15 seconds.
Now, for both of you, obviously, taking the leap to going from being not a content creator to being a content creator, especially with video, and I even know podcasters who they don't like the sound of their voice, or maybe with people they don't like how they look on camera. How did you guys overcome, if it existed, any fear or that little voice in your head that might have said, don't do this?
One thing that I love about TikTok is that it's more of a relaxed atmosphere. It's more of a come as you are kind of feel. And so even if you're making a fool of yourself, it's kind of okay. Whereas on YouTube, you need to be a little more straightforward and educational and professional and well thought out script. Whereas TikTok is a little more be yourself and present your content in a way that's relatable. And like you said, it's short and sweet. It's 15 seconds or less. So you can only be afraid for 15 seconds and then you get it over with and push post and just get it out there.
I do have some of those inner fears, but like Brooke alluded to, it's, to be honest and blunt, some of the stuff on there is so stupid that it's just, it's like, how could that be, if they're doing that, I can handle doing my little dance with no dance, no dance skills. So you kind of get that out. And I read a lot of Stephen Pressfield stuff, and he talks a lot about you're always critical of yourself and to just put it to the side and just know that, acknowledges that it's there and just go for it.
Yeah. Any social media platform you go on, there's going to be stupidity and inappropriate stuff that's out there. But that's where I think we got to be better curators. If you don't want to see, 16-year-old girls doing what I call bippity boppity boop videos, then leverage the search function and search for teachers of TikTok or search for science or social studies and see what content people are putting out there. Then the ever elusive algorithm is going to start to learn who you are as a user. So, the three of us all have the app. Obviously, you guys are creating. I'm consuming in lieu of creating, but I will get there. If you haven't checked out the app, go check it out. You don't need an account to use it. You guys have seen the videos where they take you through the timeline of being a TikTok user. I download the app and then I create my account and then I'm addicted and it's, I'm just sitting there swiping.
It really is that way. And I've read up on the algorithm a little bit, and it's supposed to be really smart that even while you're still scrolling, it notices what you linger on, and it continually is adapting what it's curating for you. So it gets to know you really fast, and it does get very addicting very quickly.
Do you also find it addicting, Jeremy?
Oh, absolutely. And so does my 10-year-old. We're one of the things that I talk about is the settings. There's parental control, so you can filter out some of the bad stuff. Some of it still gets through, and you can limit the amount of time that you're on the app, and it's passcoded. So we haven't done it yet, but it's leaning towards that way of a 40 minute. And it's funny because the limit is 40 minutes, and that's the lowest you can put it at in the parental settings is 40 minutes a day. So I think that even TikTok has that knows that responsibility, or I guess feels like they need to have those parameters because it is addicting or it's distracting to say the least. I don't know. Addiction is such a strong word, but I think that you can definitely argue that for sure.
Well, I was not aware of that functionality within the app, so that's good to know, because people might say, addictive is too strong, but I mean, I work with ninth graders, and these kids are addicted to their phones, whether it's Snapchat or Instagram or anything like that. And this feature alone is really valuable, especially one as a parent, but two, even as an educator, to recommend to kids to even check out, because Instagram doesn't have that functionality. You can get lost forever on Instagram. Twitter doesn't have that functionality where it'll help you restrict use of their app. They want you in those apps to see the advertisements and, you know, all those things. So I think this is now a feature that kind of sets TikTok apart, and people need to be aware of that. So thank you for sharing. Yeah,
it's in the settings under digital well-being under the settings. So definitely something to check into. And
I love that terminology, digital well-being. That's fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
As teachers on TikTok, now people, you know, a listener could turn around and download it and just never apply to education. In both of your opinions, what is something that teachers don't realize in terms of the value of this app as we might apply it to education?
So beyond just connecting with students on their level and getting their jokes, getting their references, I have been thinking about this a lot actually lately, and I can see it being used as a tool to demonstrate understanding. Like, I've had students make video projects already, so why not have them make a 15-second video clip, find a funny audio, and act out a scene from Romeo and Juliet. Like, it could be a different way to connect with the literature that we're working with in class. And so that's one way I think that I would maybe use it in the future. And you don't have to require students to post it. Like, I don't have to say, hey, you have to make this public on the internet. They can download the video and still give it to me in a digital file instead of posting it publicly. But they can use TikTok to create content to demonstrate their understanding.
Now, that's been my first experience with it, because I had two girls in one of my classes come to me and ask on a project in, I think, end of October and November. And they were like, hey, Mr. Nessie, can we do TikTok videos? And I said, hold on. I said, I've heard of TikTok. I'm not all that familiar with it. So you guys are going to teach me something. So I want to see what you do and what you create and how it works. And they showed me a little bit about how the app works. And that was really the starting point for me saying, there's something here. So for me, it started with students. And again, doing projects, they said we can download it. We don't have to post it. So they were able to email me what they created. And these two young ladies were super excited that they were able to show me what they knew and what they understood about the topic in a way that was on their level. And the music and the effects, it was just, I mean, they got 100, and if I could have went higher, I guess I could have, but it was a really well done project that kind of then said, there's something here. So, Jeremy, how about, you in terms of what teachers should understand about the value?
Absolutely. Number one, and Brooke hit it already, is the whole relationship piece being number one. But I think there is a lot of value in, and veteran English teachers are probably going to be smacking me through the audio here, but
nobody's going to punch you in the face. So go ahead.
Honestly, the 5-paragraph essays dead, the formal ones that we were taught. I mean, there is still importance in academic writing, don't get me wrong. But if kids cannot communicate their idea verbally, through video, through the means of today, then how are we preparing them for the world that is waiting for them? And that's kind of where I'm at with this. I mean, if you can communicate your idea in an elevator speech, which a lot of people talk about elevator speeches, it's a 15-second TikTok video. So I'm really reevaluating the way that I teach high school English, where, the teachers that taught me, and even some of the veteran ones I teach with in the building, they're like, what are you doing? And it's like, I just don't see, I see value in the academic essay, but we've got to be doing more than just that.
I actually had someone ask me, because I made a TikTok video about English teachers handing back essays very, very late. Like, we take a long time to grade essays. And so a student commented and said, well, then why do you even assign them? If you don't like grading essays, why do you even assign them? And my first gut instinct was to say, well, the standards say I have to. So then I actually looked up the standards, and when I was looking at it, I was like, well, there are probably other ways I could get them to demonstrate their mastery of these concepts without necessarily being a 5-paragraph essay. Yes, there are times where they need to do that, but I agree. I think we need to see also, our goal is to make them college and career ready. And I don't know a lot of careers where they're going to have to write an academic 5-paragraph or longer essay, but I know a lot of careers where they're going to have to get on conference calls and be able to speak their mind and be able to present their ideas or to speak in a meeting. I think, and speaking and listening does fall under the English standards, and it's something that we kind of neglect a lot in the English classroom.
Absolutely. I mean, in my own classroom, I haven't given a traditional, and I'm doing air quotes, a traditional test or quiz in 3 years. I also don't give traditional homework. So my classroom, as people now know, is pretty much project-based. And I'm always looking for different ways to give kids the opportunity to choose how they want to demonstrate understanding. So I've in the past had them do faux Instagram posts or fake Twitter type posts or make a fake Facebook page and utilize those skills. And I think that's really what it comes down to is it's not specifically about TikTok. TikTok is an app that's here right now. You know, in 3 years, it might not exist, but the skills that we as content creators or our students will get, those will be transferable. As creators and people who are putting themselves out there, have you gotten any pushback or have you been spoken to by an administrator about leveraging social media like this for people who have that concern?
Well, when I was hired, I had already had, like I said, public accounts. I had the public Instagram account. I had the public YouTube, and at the time it was Musical.ly account. And so I did bring it up to my administrator when I first started. I said, hey, I have these accounts that are public. And his kind of recommendation was like, okay, well, don't befriend students on the internet. And I said, okay, I won't follow students on the internet, but I can't really stop them from following me. And so that is one area where I'm kind of like, ooh, I don't really know how to navigate that, but I try to do it as professionally as possible.
And I would say because I've consumed your content, you're not putting out what anybody would deem as inappropriate. It's lighthearted. It's fun.
I am very, very careful.
But again, it's lighthearted. It's relatable. It's authentic. And let's face it, we want our students to be authentic and put content out and share their voices. How are they going to do that if we don't model it? We teach them how to write the 5-paragraph essay. We show them examples.
Absolutely. Yes. And I think that it's really important that I still maintain my professionalism even on my own personal account. So you could argue, hey, it's my account. I can use curse words in my lyrics if I want to, but I choose not to, and I purposefully make that decision, as you said, to model what it's looked like to be a professional in the public world.
My principal and superintendent are they're fine with me doing what I'm doing. We've had conversations, I can remember when Facebook and Twitter first came up, and the whole concern of, it's make sure you don't friend your, students and that kind of thing. And my rule with Facebook always has been, when you graduate, I'll friend you. And same with, I experimented with one class with Snapchat. We did kind of a group type of chat, but everything had to be English class related. And it worked fine. I did that a couple of years ago. Not something I really wanted to do. But they kind of, well, let's just take learning a little further. And, there was joking around and stuff, but it was okay. With TikTok, there was a couple that I kind of maybe pushed the line on a little bit, still professional, but just to get a rise out of the kids a little bit. I said, I used the word BA, but I said just I'm a BA teacher is what I said, but I didn't actually say the word. So I kind of pushed the line a little bit with a couple of my TikToks, but for the most part, I am very professional and very careful with what I post because, again, we are modeling this for our students and teaching them to be better citizens and make good choices, whether it's song lyrics or whether it's actions within the video, whatever. But I've had very, very positive feedback from my administrators. So.
Well, that's good to hear. Now, we've talked a lot about so far the motivation and how you're leveraging the platform. Can each of you talk about what inspires your creations?
Some of it is just scrolling through TikTok and hearing a jingle that I'm like, oh, I could do that with, Great Gatsby, or I could do that with Lord of the Flies or whatever. Last week I had my pencil sharpener disappeared in my classroom, and it is screwed to a piece of wood in on my bookcase. So they had to unnail or unscrew the piece of wood that my pencil sharpener was on. So I did a TikTok about my missing pencil sharpener. And slowly but surely, pieces are beginning to appear on my desk every day. So I'm going to be doing a kind of a revamp of day 1, day 2, day 3, this appeared, So just funny little things that can happen, or just sometimes I do things that kind of annoy me as a teacher sometimes, that it's kind of funny because other teachers can relate to it. And even the students can relate to what I'm talking about. So that's kind of my inspiration, I guess. It's just, just being mindful. Oh, I want to create something this week. What's going to be my content?
For me, I genuinely enjoy the process of creating TikToks. I watch my own TikToks back and they make me laugh. And if I'm having a hard day and it's my lunch break, I'm going to make a TikTok to kind of liven myself up for my next class so I can show up excited again and kind of recover from what has just maybe gone through my classroom. And I do as well take pieces of my day and throw them into my TikToks. I'll kind of scroll through the For You page, listen to what audios are trending, and if something catches my ear, I'll be like, oh, I think I can apply that to tardiness, or I think I can apply that to no-name papers, and I'll save. You can favorite the different videos or the different audios, and I'll kind of save it. And then when I'm ready to create, I just kind of scroll through my favorites and see which one fits the mood, and then I make that. I almost exclusively make them on my lunch breaks, so it's kind of my little lunch routine. I send all the emails, catch up on emails, I eat my lunch, and then I make a TikTok video, and the class that comes in after is always asking me, did you make a video at lunch? And it's true, I did.
Nice. That's awesome. And obviously inspiration can come from so many places. So I'm sure there's something that inspires you. And maybe after this conversation, hopefully you're inspired to at least download the app, check it out, and maybe figure out a way to apply it to your career as an educator and connect with your students. Now, as we start to wrap up this conversation, Jeremy and Brooke, first, I thank you so much for taking time to coordinate our schedules and appear here, together. So I can't thank you guys enough. But before I let you go, 2 more things. So the first, what's the best thing that's happened to you as a result of creating this content on this platform?
Hands down, beyond a shadow of a doubt, it's being able to relate with my students. I kind of assumed that if they found my TikTok, they would be irritated that their teacher was on there, but it was the complete opposite. They are excited to have a teacher that understands what they're talking about when they sing one of the little audios or they make a reference to a joke, and they come into class and they're like, I saw you on my For You page. And it builds excitement in the classroom that I wouldn't have been able to find in another area. So that is hands down the biggest benefit that it has been being on TikTok as an educator.
I would totally agree with that. The relationship building is huge. The other thing is just meeting the multiple educators I have that are actually on TikTok, and going and being able to speak at various different conferences and being on the podcast here and different things. And, early on, whenever I first started the TikTok thing, I was just trying to find a way that I could collaborate with other teachers on it. So slowly making those connections as the more and more I talk about it. So
Now, Jeremy, also, can you talk a little bit about, I guess, your project, or on your website, you're being very intentional about trying to connect with other educators on TikTok. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure, yeah. My website is called thetiktokteacher.com. And what I'm doing is I'm slowly reaching out to teachers across the world, across the U.S., and just trying to build just kind of a curated site of all the teachers that are on TikTok. I know I'm not going to get them all, but what I'd like to do is just kind of showcase each individual teacher. And I've got a form on the website that the teacher fills out, has like 4 questions, and then I basically put a little post on my blog, and then I tweet it out so other teachers can see what teachers are doing on TikTok. And I'd love for Brooke to reach out to me after this, and or at least send me a tweet or something, and we can hook up, and I can get you on the site as well. It sounds like you've got some awesome content created. It's just really neat to just see an app that is designed for 16 to 24-year-olds, and teachers are just going, nuts with this and doing some awesome things. And again, it just goes back to building relationships, and that's what I didn't go into education to give standardized tests all day. I did it for the relationship aspect, and I'm sure you guys did too.
Nice. And obviously there'll be a link in the show notes out at chrisnessy.com/149 to Jeremy's website. Before I let you guys go, Brooke, what is the best way or ways that people can connect with you, continue the conversation, and ask questions that maybe I didn't ask?
I would love to find you on TikTok. You guys can find me at That New Teacher. I told you it's my first year teaching, so I just went with that and I claimed it. That New Teacher on TikTok.
Nice. And Jeremy, how can people connect with you besides the website? You
can find me at Wrinkle Jeremy on Twitter is the best place, or Jeremy Wrinkle. It's JeremyRinkel @gmail.com.
Brooke, Jeremy, thank you so much for taking time to be here on the House of EdTech podcast. I'll have a link to their TikTok handles, as they both mentioned in the show notes. My TikTok handle is at CJNesi, Nesi, and I don't have a video or anything up yet, but again, this is the next step in me creating that content. So connect with me on TikTok as well, and we will go on this journey together. Thank you guys for being here. I got to be honest, I hope you are just as excited as I am to, one, create content on TikTok, and to even consider having students use the technology and develop those skills, like I mentioned in the EdTech Thought earlier in this episode. But before I move on, I do have an update. This is a Brooke Rogers update. As you hopefully can recall from just a few minutes ago, I did ask her what her administrators thought of her use of TikTok in the classroom. So the day after recording this conversation, Brooke was called in by her principals and was told that she could not continue to create TikTok videos using her classroom as the location where she recorded content. Being a first-year teacher, like she mentioned, she immediately agreed to not use her classroom, even though it's very clear in her videos, if you check them out, that there's nothing that identifies the location or name of her school or district. But that's my opinion after having consumed her content. Then on top of that, since letting me know, Brooke then provided an additional update where she went back to her administration and sincerely asked them to reconsider their position and point of view. And they did. The catch, or the stipulation put on her, is that she creates content that is very teacher-focused and would create nothing that might make students feel like she was mocking them in any way. So really focusing on teachers and content for teachers about education. And that's what she's going to do. So hopefully you go out and at least check out TikTok. Maybe you create an account. Again, I think it's important that everybody claim their little piece of every app where you can get your name. Go get your name or whatever your handle is on Twitter or Instagram. Go get it. I mean, what's the worst that happens? You delete your account. But having an account on TikTok lets you go and follow others and start to connect and build a network on TikTok. And again, if you go out to chrisnessy.com/149, you'll be able to connect with Brooke and Jeremy. And hopefully you're on your way to TikToking. Now, let's keep the TikTok train rolling, but we're going to switch over to our Just Give It a Try segment. So it's been a couple of episodes since I did Just Give It a Try, so allow me to refresh what this segment is all about. At the end of every episode, I tell you that using technology isn't difficult, just give it a try. So this is where you can contribute your things that you tried, whether they worked or didn't work, in your classroom or school as it relates to education and technology. Today's installment comes to us from my friend Adam Clark, all the way down in Oxford, Alabama. He mentions that I did visit there a couple of years ago, which was still one of the best 24-hour periods in my life as I got to visit Oxford High School and meet Adam and his colleagues. And they have a wonderful school down there. And hopefully one day I'll get to go back to Oxford. But for now, let's keep the TikTok train thing going. And Adam, he has explored TikTok and he shares his Just Give It a Try as it relates to TikTok. So I'll be quiet. Take it away, Adam.
Hello, Chris and House of EdTech listeners. This is Adam Clark from down in Oxford, Alabama, and just wanted to jump in here and thank you, Chris, for giving me the opportunity to discuss my limited use with TikTok. I actually got to spend some time with Chris several years ago. Came down to visit us and helped us kind of get some podcasts here off the ground within some people in our building. And so I've not been as successful with it as I would have liked to, but I hopefully, after listening to the EdTech Smackdown at the end of last year, hopefully Chris has given me some motivation to get back and press record again and get back on that. So hopefully my podcast, the Hero Ed Podcast, will be back sooner rather than later. But we're here to talk about TikTok. And to be quite honest with you, I really didn't have a lot of experience or knowledge of what this app was up until about 6-7 months ago. I'd seen videos posted on social media of just the random things you see people make TikToks of, and I just did not quite know what it was. And then as I started to see my students get more involved with it, I became even more interested because I like to sort of meet students where they're at and use the things that they are comfortable with in social media to do some productive things in the classroom. So I started to do some research, and Miss Catherine Byers, who you can find on Twitter at Miss Byers History, she's out in California. She posted a couple of videos of some of her students using TikTok to explain some concepts in world history, and it got me thinking, okay, how can I apply this in my U.S. history class? So I was kind of hesitant at first because I really do not have a lot of knowledge of it and how to use it or the interface and anything. I just did not have a lot of that. So I was relying heavily on my students. I saw one of my students one day in class, right at the very end, we had about 2-3 minutes before the bell rang. We were packing up and they were doing sort of like two girls were doing sort of like a little funny hand motion dance thing. And I asked, like, what are y'all doing? And she said, we're making a quick TikTok. And so they showed me. I was like, I need you guys to help me out because I want to be able to use this in class. And they got very, very excited about it. So through some planning, I found a great use for it to illustrate the events that led the United States into entering World War I. So we had studied several different events that led to the U.S. joining and the U.S.'s involvement in the war and sort of the post-war era as well. And we had some key points. So I had students get together in pairs of 2 to 3 to illustrate that by putting the text and some of the effects and sound effects and things like that. And some of them pointed it out. Some of them acted things out, different scenes and whatnot. So it did not work as perfectly as I wanted to, hopefully to plan, because some of the videos were a little bit shorter and the text appeared quite faster than what I was anticipating based on previous videos I've seen. But it did reveal some great value to show chronology of events, cause and effect, lets the students get out there, be creative, pick music that kind of supports what the topic is that they're illustrating. So I think it's got some real relevance and some impact in the classroom to engage students, and I look forward to using it more. So that's just my foray into using TikTok. So hopefully through this episode, it's going to give me even more insight in how I can use it and give me more ideas, and we can come back at a later time and discuss even more. But that's just been my first step into this, and I look forward to hearing and learning more about it. Thanks for the opportunity to come on and talk about it, Chris.
Thanks for sharing your thoughts on TikTok, Adam. I hope listening to this entire episode continues to push you and encourage you, just like everybody who's going to be listening to this episode should get something out of it one way or the other. And if you want to contribute your thoughts for a future Just Give It a Try, go to chrisnessy.com/flipgrid and click on the Just Give It a Try grid, and I'll be happy to share something that you did in your classroom or school. Again, whether it worked or didn't work that doesn't matter. I want to share and hear your stories about what you're doing in your schools and classrooms. Thanks for checking out this episode of the House of EdTech podcast. Very specific thanks to Brooke, Jeremy, Brooke, and Adam for your contributions to this episode. Let's keep the conversation going. I would love to connect with you and hear your thoughts on what we talked about as it relates to TikTok. I've got links in the show notes out at chrisnessy.com/149, or you can send me a message by going to chrisnessy.com/feedback. And I guess I'm officially looking to connect with you on TikTok, where my username is at CJNesi, Nesi. If you enjoyed the House of EdTech, do me a favor. Go tell somebody else about the show. If you share it on social media, use the hashtag House of EdTech, or you can tag at House of EdTech on Twitter or Instagram. But really, go find somebody face-to-face, give them a high five, a fist bump, a handshake, and say, hey, I just listened to this podcast all about using TikTok in education. Here are my thoughts, and I think you might get some value out of what Chris has to say. It's that simple. And then take their phone from them, go subscribe to the podcast, and there we go. That's how we do it. You can also, if you'd like to, you can become an awesome supporter of the House of EdTech. It is powered by Patreon, which allows a consumer of content like you to support a creator of content like me. Many thanks to my awesome supporters, which include Anthony Arnault, Eric Kurtz, Dan Gallagher, Carlos Garza, Peggy George, Jen Giffen, Jeff Herb, Mike Messner, JP Presevento, and Kyle Wilcox. Thank you to everybody for all of your support. And if you're interested, you can go out to chrisnessy.com/awesome, where you can contribute $2, $3, all the way up to, I think, $50 an episode. Hey, if you really love it, maybe that'll work for you. It would certainly work for me and go a long way to do what I'm doing here with the podcast. The next episode of the House of EdTech is going to be episode 150. My goodness, has it been that long? I guess. I mean, here, we're in 2020, and we started this in 2014. So yeah, we are at episode 150. I think that's important, and I look forward to bringing you what I'm going to be bringing you in episode 150. I mean, I'm always excited to create this content, and that's going to come your way on February 9th, 2020. Until next time, thank you for learning with me. And remember, go get on TikTok. Go get on TikTok. Let's connect there. But using technology isn't difficult. Just give it a try.